Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 54 of Technically Trek. I am your humble host, Dave Prime, and over there to my right is our witchy captain, Ditzy Witch, Katie. How you doing?
I'm alive and I got through another week without stabbing anyone with a fork, so yay!
Oh, yeah. Me is I went another month without alcohol, so yay! 2 more months, less
I'm
than two
so
months
freaking
now.
proud of you.
Oh, thank you, but less than 2 months. I'm getting my 1 year chip, so look, I'm like counting down. Say I might be a little crazy, but after that, it's going to be another 6 months before I get another chip, and another 6 months after that, and then it's just once a year. But once I hit that 2 year mark, then it's going to be hopefully a lot better.
You have been doing absolutely brilliantly, and the longer you go and the farther you get into this journey, the stronger you're becoming, the more confident you're becoming, and you're becoming more like yourself again, and even more so.
Yeah, I'd say we were just talking about backstage. That's like I was feeling a new level of confidence that I don't remember having for a long, long time. So, yay on
Yeah.
that! Because like one of the big things is I am like in charge of one of the AA groups that or meetings that I go to. I used to do 5 a week. Now I'm doing 6. So I'm doing 2 meetings on Saturdays instead of just the one.
Wow,
But
you really do
yeah,
have a busy schedule.
yeah. Say like
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why we have only a 90-minute show, because as soon as we're done at 7:30 my time, say I gotta bust a move and head to a even though I'm 49, I go to a young people's meeting, and say but they don't discriminate on age because they don't want to lose out on the potential for those that are senior members, I think is the way they put it.
Well, yeah,
There's a
but you're as young as you feel. My
exactly.
brain says that I'm 18, my body says I'm 118, so it's one of those, it balances out.
Yeah. But the other big news, we have a partner in in the show now. So
Yes.
it's called Dubby. They do like the powder for the energy drinks. And they cater towards gamers. So gamers need that little energy boost to keep on playing their games for hours on end, but they also look at content creators and streamers such as ourselves. And right now they do have a special. Say you usually get 10% off for the order, but like right now, if you go to W, oh, don't take my butt. If you
Sorry.
go to w.gg and put in the code TechTrek, TEKTREK, you get 30% off your order. That ends at midnight tonight. But in the future, say you always get 10% off if you use TechTrek. At least I think that's the code I'm going to go for. I tried another one, but someone already took it, so nuts on that. But anyways, didn't mean to overrun you there, Paigey, but Data gets some giggity action. Hopefully we get Leftwich in here, but yeah, say the W doesn't have any sugars in it. You don't have like the crash they use. I have to read up more on it, and I will be doing some TikTok reviews when I get my starter pack to kind of get an idea of what they have to offer. But I'm looking forward to the partnership we have. So W.GG code Tech Trek. But again, since we're on that 90-minute schedule, and we got 2 people backstage, if I can find the fourplex there.
No, we've got
Tyson
3.
and Travis, how you going, guys?
How you doing? I mean, you've done
Yeah,
such. God damn it! I forgot my comm badge.
We've got Phil backstage as well.
Not yet. Phil's on his way.
No, he's here.
Oh, he is? Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Oh, whoopsie.
There you go. Hey, Phil. See, my screen didn't. You were kind of below the screen, my line of vision there, so I was like, oh crap.
But by the way, Dave, you have been doing so good that I have actually been shamed into now using my mug.
But
I will no longer display anything that might be Rocky Mountains that turn blue when it's cold. So,
but I guess what's in the coffee cup? Is it the Rocky Mountain Blue or is it other stuff?
we'll leave that to our viewers' imagination, but I'm going to say this is our sponsor's drink. And I can say that because
that works too.
Whatever it is, it's giving me energy. So
yeah, one of the flavors I'll have to look it up here. But one of the flavors they have is called Grandpa's Dentures.
Huh?
Hang on.
Yeah.
How does one determine what that even?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the same.
I one time, when I was a very little kid, picked up a glass next to my grandma's bed and realized that it wasn't just plain water.
Oh,
I mean, it looked like Alka-Seltzer, but it wasn't. It was a cleaning agent.
Yeah, let's see here. What's the description? Ever heard of a pitaya and mango combo? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that word right. Pitaya, pitaya.
I'm not sure.
It's Grandpa's favorite treat right before bed. That's why his denture water is always tasting pretty good. Those dentures soak in that water overnight and create a really nice concoction of pitaya and mango. It's really sweet and fruity, and you're just happy to still have your grandpa around. Cheers.
Yep.
How?
That gives an idea what the partnership is. I mean,
this might be the only show they sponsor.
Oh my goodness.
So another news.
In other news, the Naked Now and
Dave, you said you had news or you had bees?
Well, yeah, it's like news. It's the sponsorship.
Oh, I may have come in a bit. Okay.
Yeah, and the 10-month ship that I got last Tuesday.
Congrats.
Thank you. Like I said, the nice thing about my home group is they pass them out the first 12 months. So for them.
Yeah. Can I do the thing?
Sure.
Is it not working? It's not working now. Now I'm just looking stupid. No, now I just. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, but
wow.
That's honestly the only thing I like about Apple products is that you can do that on screen.
Do it, yeah.
That is literally the only thing I like about Apple.
The force is not with me. Hang on a second. Oh, I forgot right here. I've got my badge.
Yeah, mine's still in the fridge.
The problem is I'm wearing a yellow shirt, and so it probably won't even show up. I don't know. Maybe it will.
Yeah, well, a couple of interesting things about this episode. Like Tyson mentioned, we got to see the beginnings of Data getting some giggity with Tasha, but they kind of did that intentionally to quash any rumors that Tasha was a lesbian.
Yes.
Really?
Well, I mean, you gotta look at the hair that they gave her. It is very lesbianic, I want to say.
No. I'm sorry. Right.
The word you're looking for is psychedelic. You gotta know the culture.
Yes, psychedelic. But no. Lesbian, hair.
Well, this was the late '80s too. You got to remember that. So
Yeah, I know, and it was so stereotypical, and I can't stand stereotypes. I really can't. It's a very big problem in this world. But I do know that that's why they did it, and Data. I mean, Tasha's hot.
oh yeah.
I mean, my sister's lesbian, and she's got the whole Rachel Maddow.
I thought the whole reasoning for that was just to establish something about Data, like that he is
functional.
That is actually a functioning part of him, that he can do that.
Right.
That to make him more human.
Yeah, but of course, I mean, his line talking to the captain after he got intoxicated. If you prick me, do I not leak?
Leak? Yes, I've got that written down. I've got that written down.
It's like, I have fingerprints. Humans have fingerprints. But that bit when he fell over on the bridge, that was something that Brent Spiner came up with, and the director liked it and kept it.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, what you see on the screen here, that is exactly what Paige was doing at that scene.
I've got to say, I know some women will keep something in their, upper nightstand drawer that takes 2 double D batteries. But can you imagine the bragging rights to say that, I just have something that takes a car battery, 6 feet, like that. My goodness, that's one hell of a toy.
But is one thing that I read that I found actually quite astonishing, that it was Gene Roddenberry's idea to recycle the Naked Time script for this episode, thinking that with a higher special effects budget and things like that, it would be great. But after it aired, he's like, maybe not.
I always wondered how. Okay, so if you're talking about a biological pathogen, how it would affect a mechanical process. Like, I mean, if you're familiar with biology and how certain cells interact, and you watch Data take apart his arm and you see circuitry there, right? It's not. He is not designed. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it was funny plot wise and a lot of great one-liners, and it's just thoroughly enjoyable to watch. But when you think about the science behind it, somebody who has wires and mechanisms aren't going to be susceptible to a biological pathogen like that. It just.
If you look at it a little bit more outside of the box, Tyson, if you look at it a little bit more outside of the box, exactly what Data said, he was made to be as human as possible by Dr. Sung, and he does have chemical liquid going through his system,
he does,
like bloodstream. And if this pathogen, like he says, he's got pores, he's got fingerprints. If this pathogen was passed through his pores into his mechanical fluid, it could have potentially, it could have infected that fluid and short-circuited some things to affect him as well, to make him intoxicated.
But to have the same effect that it had on the humans, it would have a different effect, I think. And now the only plausible thing that I could come up with is, on your point, he did make him as human as possible, maybe too good, maybe to the point where if his neuronet could recognize the pathogen and mimic the illness that pathogen would cause. But if that were the case, and I mean, it could say that, hey, the biological, the positronic brain recognizes this pathogen. This is the effects it would have on a human. So I'm going to cause your brain to have the same effects because I want, But if that were the case, then he should be susceptible to colds and flus and everything else. And
I don't think that's what happened. I think you're looking at it too literal. And now, right, Data was designed to to present as human as possible. It was even designed fully functional so that it could have at it with people. You know, that's how human Dr. Sung wanted to make him. He just couldn't get the skin tone right. But you know, when he designed Data's positronic brain, he based that positronic matrix on the human brain. His circulatory system, it was based on a human circulatory system, a human neural network, just a hell of a lot more advanced. And do you know how we were saying before, when it comes to Data, that he actually presented feeling and emotion before he got his emotion chip? And you know, he even said in Picard, you know, Spock taught him how to love. You know, he taught him how to feel. It is Cat for people who don't know who Spot is, and shame on you if you don't. Yeah. But you know, the way he was designed, if you think about it, like I say, like stand outside of the room that the box is in, not just on the outside of the box. If you really think about it and how Data was designed, he could potentially be affected by something like this, because it's something that is very rare, and it's something that is passed on by touch. It sinks into your skin through your pores, and it changes your blood chemistry, which affects your brain to change that. And you know, it does have the potential to do that, and it did, you know. And I think it was done in a very good way. And one thing I find is some people, especially when it comes to Data, and saying, "Oh, this shouldn't be able to happen to him, and he shouldn't be able to do this." They don't think about all that. And I think a lot about it, about how Data was designed. His whole design was based on human physiology, just more advanced and more intricate. So, you know, with it being more advanced and more intricate, it's very surprising that it affected him as mildly as it did. If you think about it in the whole grand scheme of things.
I think if you've ever seen the movie AI, Artificial Intelligence, with the child robot, right? And he tries to eat the food, and then he goes, kind of, you know, because it gets into his circuitry, and like that kind of makes sense to me. But even in that, there was it feels like there was more of a biological function. And also in Picard, the golem that obviously Picard, you know, is soul inhabited. I don't know if we say soul or consciousness or whatever you want to call it, but his body died, and so they put Picard into this golem and made it into Picard. That, you know, when you saw the transparency through it, did not have any wires like Data had. It did not have any flashing LED lights like Data had. Didn't have any components that he could pull out of his wrist and put in a phaser like Data had. It was
true.
It was a artificial biological instead of an artificial mechanical. Data was a mechanical artificial life, where the golem, the later golems that they made were less mechanical and more biological, artificial biology, and not just artificial intelligence. I don't want to, you know, stall on this. You know, I'd love to come back and explore how this could have happened, but so much more of the show to talk about, and it was really just a funny show. I love the Wesley Crusher, you know, pulling out the.
It was Art. Well, no, it was Argyle, the assistant chief engineer, that pulled out all the chips and stuff. Wesley was just had the repulsor beam blocking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but no. Going back with the sex scene with Tasha and Data. Did Data ejaculate in her?
Oh, for goodness sake!
You got motor oil all over my shirt. Oh my god!
But the follow up, if he did, was it like Soong's sperm that was.
No!
God!
No! No!
God!
No!
Does she get pregnant with baby Data? Oh.
Oh,
How many
No,
viewers have
honestly,
we lost? Let me look at the top there.
hopefully you might have gained a
I
couple of that.
apologize for
thought
that.
about this.
But since Travis and Phil haven't had stagey.
I agree. My pariahs too. Our audience's pariahs.
It is a legitimate question, though. There's a
I don't even want to know.
Well, I would say
Email
if he did,
Is the sensation of an orgasm considered a feeling? And if it is, was Data capable of feeling that? Because I know there's a fine line between emotions and feelings. Very fine line. I mean, he has tactile responses, right? You can feel when he touches something. Is an orgasm an emotional, or is it more of a tactile? I mean, what is it? Is he capable of
It's an emotion
enjoying the moment? I mean, because
well.
it's it's a few seconds of intense enjoyment followed by 3 hours of shame. But,
Actually, no. It is a sensation that causes an emotional reaction.
oh my. Oh, goodness.
I love Travis. I'm sorry, I play. Maybe that's just gay sex. It's like, oh, that was great. Oh my God, get out of my room.
I mean, I could go into it and explain the biology and mechanics of an orgasm, but I don't think that's why our viewers are here.
Or would he just mimic the final moments and?
You know what?
It depends what culture he derived is. It depends which culture he derived his expertise from, because he's programmed in multiple techniques from many different cultures. So he may have used a mix of all of them. She may have made a request. I mean, you never know.
He's a jewel.
Oh my God! I'm just thinking of her dripping hydraulic fluid from her hoo-ha, and now I'm just.
I was going to say, Tyson, I was going to say, if he did achieve even kind of some fluid transfer, it probably would have been some of his, biolubricant, liquid.
You should do a full show on alien sex education.
And you know what? One of his subroutines could have been pre-programmed to, mimic after a certain point at a time.
No.
It could have been, say, hey, after 10 minutes, ejaculate.
Well, I think it would be, and I'm going to argue on Katie's behalf here, that it would probably be more like he would be more fine-tuned to sense what his partner was feeling and to try to achieve it at that moment rather than at a predestined, because with anybody, I mean, you can be fast or slow or long or hard, or I'm getting all kinds of nauseated right now.
Oh, so many innuendos.
Do you have something to add with that particular scene of the episode, Travis, Phil?
Yeah, Tums. That's what.
If he's fully functional and stuff, the question is.
Yes, the answer is yes, Travis. Before you even mention it, the answer is yes.
I was just gonna ask, do you think he had any kind of synthetic hair down there?
Synthetic what?
Hair.
No.
Pubic hair.
No, the answer is not yes. It's no. No.
You know what I mean?
And it would be slicked back like on his head. Would it just be
that's
like?
What I was saying. That's what I was thinking. If it's slicked apart, if it's got a part right down the middle. I know we.
But I get that. I mean, if you went down there, it's just like, is Data cut or uncut?
Yeah. That would be a good. You know what? That is a good Star Trek question. It's like is he circumcised or uncircumcised?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I did not even think we'd be going this direction talking about this episode, but they are legitimate questions.
And the measurements, is he like average size, or did Sue say, you know what, I'm gonna do above average? You know, I mean, it's like
I'm really sorry about your chip and what I'm about to do.
oh.
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, welcome to Technically Track. Sex education on alien races.
Well, say we've gained 3 viewers since we started talking about this, so.
Well, let's carry it on then, you know. Alien sex education, Android edition.
When the FCC gets a hold of this, we're in trouble.
We did learn something too, that he was written
I'm all right,
up
I'm in England.
He was written up in several medical journals, or certain, he was, he had some medical journals that he was written up in. So Tasha probably been the only person to know that, the one thing that medical journalists wouldn't know about him.
Yep.
I'm just wondering how long it lasted. I'm sorry.
Sung copied his face. Did he copy everything, or did he give a little extra to Data? Who knows?
There you go. Yeah.
I'm just fascinated on like what culture he derived that session from.
Your skin looks really white, but parts of you look black.
Oh.
Oh, my
flirting with Travis. Stop flirting with Travis. Get a room like this one, people.
You might look like a honky, but you're hung like a donkey.
The rating for this episode has gone clear out the window.
I'm going to have to retitle this on YouTube later. But oh my god!
I blame that on the Grand Marnier. That was my fault. I'll be quiet.
I blame Dave for this entire conversation.
We have spent a good amount of time on, Data's anatomy. Oh goodness!
Hey, viewers are having fun though. That's the good thing. So yay! Yeah. But yeah, like some little notes that I put on about the episode is there's just like the level of caution that Picard had when the team came back, and it's just like, what was it? What was he saying? Complete. Oh, I forgot to write the word down. Examination to make sure that they didn't bring anything back.
Yes.
Oh, the transporter biological filters.
Hey, you know what? That's exactly what Kirk did, because I rewatched the Naked The Naked Time, and I rewatched that earlier. The Naked Man, I should say. Sorry, I rewatched it, and he did the exact same thing when his landing party came back from Site 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, so so things haven't changed from the 22nd century to the 24th century and stuff and everything. So that same protocol did follow in both, the Naked Now and.
It wasn't really explained how the Tsiolkovsky actually. Well, I guess they could have picked it. Well, no, they've been orbiting that star for 8 months. So what the heck happened? How did they get it? Was it something that was in the corona or what?
You know what? That was a big. That was a really big thing.
Being in water particles in the air, but it wasn't airborne. It was transferred via touch. That is probably the only thing in the episode that confuzzled me, and that is Beverly mentioned something about it being in the water particles in the air, and yet it was transferred via touch.
Sweat.
Well, in the original,
sweat people were putting out was my guess.
In the original, in the Naked Time, in the TOS, the landing party, it wasn't Spock, but it was the other guy. He actually took off his biohazard suit. Well, not took off the biohazard suit, but he took off his glove and he touched something, and something reached for his hand, his right hand. So
Yeah, I
in
remember.
that, if you remember that, yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, I remember that. It got onto his skin, and then he put back on the glove and he touched his face and stuff and everything. So that right there, I remember when Riker said that he remembered, you know, uh, in the beginning that he remembers somewhere where somebody took a shower with their clothes, and that's the same thing too that happened in the Naked Time and TOS and stuff. I was like, oh wow, they really did a pretty decent job at kind of, you know, having to, like you said, Gene Roddenberry and stuff. But like the touch thing, that's the only thing that transmitted, the pathogen to each other and stuff because it wasn't airborne. They didn't go through the transporter system, filter out anything. They went through a full decontamination, contamination and stuff in the transport. But then, they got looked over by, Dr. Crusher and stuff. But everything still registered normal and stuff and everything. Even when like the TOS away team came back, McCoy did the same thing. He said everything seems to be normal and stuff. Of course, they cooked up uh, antidote for that time period, but somehow this pathogen was more evolved.
And
Well,
it's
yeah,
also
because
possible
things
that
do evolve over time. I mean,
right, it mutates.
viruses mutate. Yeah,
Right.
viruses mutate constantly. That's how they survive. I mean, just look at how many times COVID mutated. In the space of a year, there was 3 different strains. So,
and so it could have been that exact same virus just mutated, and therefore the cure would have to be mutated, a little different. Right.
Yeah. So it makes sense that after all those years, it did mutate and evolve. But no, I just found it so funny. I mean, this episode came out the year I was born. So yeah,
well, thanks for making me feel old.
Yeah,
TNG,
I remember watching it.
Yeah, TNG started in '87. I was born in '87, and I found it so difficult, because I was introduced to the love of Star Trek through First Contact, so it was very difficult. Yes, we will be doing that on the 7th of April.
7th of April. As close to First Contact Day as we could because First Contact Day is on a Saturday. So that is coming up later this.
But no, it was very difficult for me originally going back to watch TNG from the beginning, and especially because especially in this episode, it's like people in the 80s didn't know how to act sometimes, and there was some questionable acting in this episode, and it was a little overdone in some places. But I do like this episode for the fun factor. Basically they got a virus that made them act drunk and horny. That's the only way that I can put it. That is the virus. But I mean, it's like the way Picard and Beverly were.
That weird little cough that Picard did.
Yeah, when Beverly went to see him in his ready room, and then he like goes in real close and he's just like, "No, doctor." Honestly, because I've got a friend over tonight, Paige, and she was just like, "Oh my god, this is cringy," and I'm like, "Yes, it is cringy, but it was just so funny as well." But then the way Tasha was walking down that corridor, and then she just grabbed that bloke and kissed him. It it seemed very forced. And she was actually more, Denise Crosby actually seemed more relaxed, flirting with Brent Spiner, you know, like as Tasha and Data. She seemed more comfortable basically propositioning Data than she did kissing that random bloke in the corridor. You know, she just, it seemed more comfortable. And I mean, there is one bit in this though that I really did laugh, and so did Paige as well. And that's when Picard went to see Beverly in her office, and he did that little skip, and then he's like, "You will address me as Captain." And just the way that he says it, honestly, we were laughing like crazy. But yeah, there are a lot of cringy moments in this, but there's a lot of deep moments in it as well. And I mean, I'd have brought them up anyway, but you know, I actually took notes for this episode. Yeah, and there's actually some notes there from Paige as well. But I actually started writing notes so that I could keep account of how many verbal contractions Data uses.
Yeah, that was one of the things with the script is, I mean, sometimes
there are 4.
There's one where he used is a I'm, and then he used like did not or something like that. So he did a little bit of both in one sentence.
The first one is when he corrects Riker and he says that's blown out rather than that is. And then the other 3 times was when he was talking to Tasha, when she was propositioning him, when he said, "I'm sure he meant now," instead of "I am sure." And then he said, "I'm afraid I'm not familiar." He used verbal contractions the whole time there. And there was question. I had to rewind it and like turn the volume up and really listen. When he gets off the examination table and given a clean bill of health, I had to really listen because I thought he said "I'm" instead of "I am," but he actually did say "I am." He just said it really quickly. So it kind of sort of sounded like a verbal contraction, but it wasn't, and I did make sure of that. But on the subtitles, because I have to have subtitles because of my hearing, it actually came up as a verbal contraction, and that's one of the reasons why I went back and rewinded it to listen again. But oh yes, and I have a request from Paige. One of you lot need to finish the limerick.
Oh,
why don't you start the limerick and I'll finish it? Hold on, I'm on form today.
There once was a woman from Venus whose body was shaped like a penis.
Oh, the one from the. Oh, okay. I thought we were doing the whole Nantucket thing because I've got 20 different endings for that. But okay.
Yeah, but see, because they did that again with the Picard finale when they all cut him off. He's like, I really wanted to finish that.
One thing that always bothered me is that even today, modern AI can use contractions no problem. It's a very simple rule. This word plus this word, apostrophe T or NT or whatever. I mean, it's a very simple thing. And considering how intelligent and smart in his calculations, why he could not use contractions is mind-boggling to me. It's such a simple rule to write into his program. The only way that it's even possible that he couldn't is if Dr. Soon wanted him to speak clearly and not use contractions and wrote it into his program that he could not.
Well, I'll let Katie go first.
Go ahead.
Sung did that with Law, and he also gave Law emotions, and he decided because Law kind of went,
cuckoo,
senior, like super senior psychopath. He wanted to start afresh with Data, so no emotion, proper speech,
So programmed him not to be able to use, which is what I said.
I agree. That he made it so maybe in the future he would be able to if his evolution of his program, but he programmed law like that from the start. And I mean, there's obviously some wrong with law upstairs. I mean, he didn't just have a few screws loose. I mean, some of his are completely missing, and but I mean, look at when Data created Lal. When she started using verbal contractions, that and then feeling emotion after that, the using verbal contractions. Yes, it was an evolution of her program, but it was because her program was failing. Her brain was failing, and that's why. And I think that may be what Dr. Sung thought about Law, and maybe that's why Law was,
let me ask a question about Lol, and let me finish the whole question before you answer. Mm-hmm. When a human child is born, if that human child is nurtured properly, given proper education, etc., grow up to be, a well-suited person. If that child in its early development years is neglected, tortured, hurt in some, that person's going to be broken. If now, when LOL came into being, if Starfleet hadn't wanted to take her, if all these things hadn't happened to her, which I think is what caused her to and then break, if that had not happened and she had been allowed to be nurtured and grown, was it a fundamental flaw in what Data did, or is that a necessary outcome from that developmental stage being interrupted by cruelty?
Say that last bit again.
So in other words, if Starfleet hadn't come and tried to take her away from her father, would she have malfunctioned?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
I think that she would. I just don't think it would have happened as quickly. Because Data was worried about it from the beginning, and he started becoming very concerned. Even though he was very proud of her, he started becoming very concerned when she started using verbal contractions. I do believe that was the start of the degradation of her positronic matrix, and I think that her program was evolving too quickly. I think that a positronic matrix was evolving too quickly, and it would have eventually started to degrade. However, I do believe that there is some merit in what Tyson is saying, and the threat of being taken away from the only thing she knows from her father. I do believe that triggered something to send the degradation off quicker.
Well, I get the reason I'm wondering is if she had had more time, let's say that incident didn't happen, and she would have learned gently more skills to cope with situations like a child does. I've been in very dangerous situations, but at 50 years old, I know how to handle them. 5-year-old doesn't. So if she had been slowly nurtured, then when something like that would have come along, she might have been more able to prepare, and it wouldn't have caused that. I don't know. Again, not a point of contention where we need to talk about it for an hour. It's a great thought experiment to wonder, if she had that proper training and love and care, without that Starfleet threat, would she have grown at a slower pace and been able to handle that? I don't know. It's weird. Or was it a fundamental flaw in her design?
I think that there was some form of flaw in her matrix, and I do genuinely believe that the verbal contractions were the first signs of it, like early stages, of early symptoms of degradation, so to speak. But I actually believe that if the threat of being taken away from Data hadn't presented itself, I believe that Data could have corrected what was going on in her matrix, and I believe that she would have survived, because I don't believe the degradation would have happened so quickly. But I do genuinely believe that the degradation had already started before that emotional hit, and that was just what tipped it over the edge and just basically made her positronic matrix just go bleh. You know, and I mean, that Offspring is a heartbreaking episode, and if we don't stop talking about it, I will cry. I really will, because that hits me in the feels so badly.
So should we add that to the episode list for the future? So it seems
yes,
like
please add an episode that'll make me cry on live on air. You know, I don't mind.
But yeah, so yeah, I can't believe we didn't think of that as an episode. But we got like over a year's worth of episodes throughout the whole Berman era, as I keep on like to refer it as.
Yeah.
But back to the episode itself, I mean, we talked about Wesley. I'm surprised he didn't get punched in the face by somebody, because he was being like super geeky, dorky, and just if he was at a school in the 20th century, yeah, he would have been bullied relentlessly based on his behavior in this episode. But the giddiness he had, you mean I'm drunk? It's like, it ain't what it's cut out to be, kid.
No, one thing that, I mean, obviously, yeah, it was a virus, so it wasn't exactly like being drunk, but they were all basically saying that everyone was like absolutely rat-assed, and, you know, horniness was a side effect of that, obviously, you know, just to make it interesting. But I've worked in a hair salon when I've had like, when I've knocked back 6 straight double vodkas, you know, and I've been able to do the hair absolutely fine. You know, I've been very giddy and stuff, but I've still been able to think. And I'm not confused when I'm drunk. I just turn into a peace-loving hippie. But you know, I so wanted to punch Wesley. I'm sorry, I don't like him. You know, at one point I started liking Wesley, but then he went, no, he turned into a right arrogant prick.
Can we go back to the whole hair thing? If I knocked back 6 vodkas and I tried to cut some lady's hair, she'd look like Gozer the Gozerian from Ghostbusters 1985. Like, that's how her hair was. I don't know how
I've been like really drunk. Like, I've had like what we got I think it was a like 750ml bottle of vodka one night, and I drank at least half of it to myself. Ugh. And I cut my friend's hair, and she said it was the best haircut she ever had, and everyone was asking where she had her haircut, and she was like, oh, she cut it drunk. Not only did I cut it drunk, I used my mother's zigzag crafting scissors to do it, because I couldn't find our haircutting scissors.
Like I said, she would look like Gozer if I did it. It would not come out, you know, kind of, you know, it wouldn't.
But speaking of haircuts, I did get a trim today.
It looks fabulous, dear.
Thank you. But
no, Wesley was a complete idiot in this episode, and you know,
he was a smart idiot, but he was an idiot.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. You know, I admire him for his intelligence. I do. But his intelligence makes him so arrogant, and I cannot stand people like that. You know, yeah, fair enough, he did help save the ship, but, you know, he was one of the reasons it was in danger in the bloody first place. But he was just... Do you know, like, Homer Simpson, when he throttles Bart? You know, yeah, I wanted to reach through my screen and just, And yeah, I really didn't like him in this episode, in particular. And I mean, I've got a note here from Paige. You know, obviously he doesn't realize, because he's intoxicated. Basically, he's got this virus. He doesn't realize what he's doing. So, like, he don't really understand the consequences. And you know, would he feel guilty afterwards? You know, I mean, is Wesley capable of feeling guilt?
But I do gotta say though, between the sweaters that the costuming department gave him, this is one of the better ones versus that peach colored one, puffy one that he wore in Where No Man Has Gone before. Then of course, like the tri-stripe little blue jumper thing that he had for pretty much the second half of the first season.
No, I much prefer his outfit today. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, it was the 80s. You know, so there were some questionable styles back then. But yeah, this was a better outfit choice for him. But yeah, just Wesley was a complete dickhead in this episode, and
it looks like Phil's formulating a thought. But he's muted right now.
Sorry, there was a bit of an inside joke with somebody I had to send really quick, and it landed in yours by mistake. Just ignore that, please. I know it looked tacky, but please ignore it. It's a long story.
I didn't see.
Yes, I'm going to actually try and delete it.
I don't see anything that came through it with you.
Oh, okay, that's just fine then.
Yeah, it's like Tyson, Pagey, Tyson, Pagey, Tyson.
Okay, understand.
Katie. Yeah, nothing there for at least the last 20 minutes from you.
Okay.
But that is very interesting.
Oh yeah, saying there. Yeah, saying like at the end of the episode when Riker says that Wesley has to get some thanks, and Worf's like, Wesley, the boy, and then Dr. Crusher's like, yes, Wesley.
Oh yeah, proud mama bear.
Oh, total. But there, sorry.
Oh dear.
There's a couple of like little nods that I caught on to that I didn't catch on to initially, because like when Geordi was in the observation lounge with Tasha, upset that he's never seen a rainbow. I was just like, is that kind of like a subtle like little hint with his hosting reading Rainbow back then at the time?
It could have been, but you know, I see this episode now, and when he says he's never seen a rainbow, he's never seen a sunrise or a sunset, it always takes me to Star Trek Insurrection. And he is stood
in tears,
watching the sunrise in tears, and he says to Captain Picard, you know, I've never seen a sunrise, at least not the way you do. And it always makes me so emotional because, you know, I mean, yeah, again, another note from Paige. Geordi reflecting on the things he doesn't have, and you know, getting very emotional, because I mean, you know, some people do get very reflective and emotional when they're intoxicated, and you know, he never actively speaks about wanting to be able to see like everybody else, but it's something hidden deep within him that he would just love, even just for a split second, to be able to see how we see. And you know, even though he got his ocular implants, you know, like by the time First Contact came out and he didn't have his visor anymore, he was so, and you know, even though he'd had like a serious downgrade in sight, you know, it was a beautiful thing when he was watching that sunrise. And that's what I see now when I watch this episode and he talks about that. So yeah, that was a beautiful moment for me, like watching it like repeated, knowing what I know, like having seen it all. And it's a much more beautiful moment now, obviously now that I've seen it all, looking back on it. But yeah, that was quite hit me in the feels.
Yeah, say Tyson, I thought you just bailed on us
No.
because it's the time for your radio net.
No, my rural internet crept up and kicked me out. I thought I had been exodus from this from this chat, but I wasn't.
Yay.
And I did, since I'm on limericks, I put a couple of inappropriate limericks in the chat. So anyway, yeah, that last one is one of my favorites. That was
yeah. We'll save that for people that are on the YouTube.
On the chat, yeah, you don't need to share
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
I want to say that's from the movie Leprechaun, so I didn't make that up.
Yeah, but the second thing was when Riker was in engineering asking for the sonic driver. It's the sonic screwdriver from Doctor Who.
Oh, I don't like Doctor Who, so I don't know. So.
But
wait,
you got to
who
know
is
at
that?
least
Don't you look at me with that tone of voice, Phil.
Sad.
Exterminate! I've never seen Doctor Who. Never seen it.
I like Torchwood. I love Torchwood. I cannot stand Doctor Who, though.
The Daleks are
I've
fun.
watched it for years. I love Doctor Who.
Yeah, I love one of my 10th Doctor screwdrivers and 9th Doctor.
I like David Tennant. I'm not gonna lie.
I do too. He's an incredible
so
actor.
Do I. He's absolutely brilliant. But I managed to stand watching little bits of episodes when he was the Doctor. But I don't know what it is about Doctor Who, but I just can't stand it. And yet I love the TARDIS.
Oh. And Good Omens, by the way, that's another David Tennant and Michael Sheen film. Yes. Oh my God, Good Omens is. By the way, there's going to be there's season 1 and season 2. There's not really a season 3, but there's going to be a 2-hour special that wraps up where season 2 left off. I can't wait because they kissed each other and then they went their separate ways. I can't wait. Okay. You gotta see it.
I don't do spoilers and slap.
Oh well, okay. You haven't seen season 2 of Good?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen season 2.
Rewind. Delete.
Because I heard about this 2-hour thing and that it wraps up how season 2 ended. So I've been waiting. Because it was questionable whether we're going to do a season 3 or not. And yes, I haven't seen it yet, and I need to rewatch season 1, and I don't do spoilers, and now I'm questioning our friendship.
But no, I agree, Paige. At least in season 1, he was a total tosser. He was a dick.
Yeah.
He was saving the ship saving the ship way too much.
Yeah, Mm-hmm. I mean, I've kind of grown to like Will Wheaton because I
like Will Wheaton. I feel bad for him in a way because I know that's all just comes down to the writing. It's not his fault. I really like Will Wheaton as a person.
Exactly.
Actually. And I feel bad for him at conventions because he can't go to a convention without everybody yelling at him, "Shut up, Wesley!" And he just it's kind of gotten to him over the years, and I feel really bad for him.
Yeah, we'll leave the space down there for.
Yeah. He was going through a hell of a lot, basically, when he was doing Star Trek. He was going through a hell of a lot in his personal life with his family, and nobody knew. And then I think it was Patrick Stewart, was it, who found out, and he kind of like took Will under his wing.
Patrick Stewart or number one, Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah.
It was one of the other.
It was one of them. But there's an interview that he did. It was an interview done by Michael Rosenbaum, and that went really deep, and it gave you a much better understanding of Will Wheaton.
Do you know when
probably the best interview that Will Wheaton's ever done?
When they started Next Generation, they were still shooting the
Stand By
movies,
Me,
like original series movies.
That too.
I don't know if you heard about this. Will Wheaton wanted to meet William Shatner, and Shatner was awful to him. Shatner was, and it just turned him off of Shatner forever. He was horrible to him. And Roddenberry tried to make Shatner go apologize to him, and even that was kind of like didn't go over very well.
Well, you know, this is why I can't stand William Shatner, and I can't even stand watching anything with him in it because it's I can just about manage to watch Generations, because he's only in it for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, but other than that, I cannot stand watching anything with William Shatner.
You know the running gag about Generations that he died with the bridge on him.
Yeah.
I heard that years and years ago.
I've never heard that one before. So.
I never heard that.
Oh my.
That's bad. Poor Tyson, he missed out on that. As it looks like his internet winked out on him again.
How rude.
Well, we'll just leave it blank down there for a few more minutes because I think he's getting close to his radio net. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Wish we got those. Those Pepsis are 3 liters, aren't they? We need to get
that.
Those Pepsis in the UK are 3 liters, aren't they? Because they just make
that's 3 liter.
We need to get those here because 2 just isn't enough.
They come in like 500 ml, 750 ml, 1 liter, 2 liter, and 3 liter.
And the 3 liter, we don't have.
And then little cans as well.
Yeah, we get all of those except the 3 liter. And I'm just like, oh, why?
Unfortunately for me, I need to cut soda out completely, even like the zero sugar options. The doctor said no more. And then I got a blood glucose meter finally, and one of my readings over the weekend was this was after eating at In-N-Out, where I just got a cheeseburger and a milkshake. My number was 516.
Milkshakes will do it.
I let out an audible gasp. I thought I was going to be high, but I was like, I don't think I've ever had a reading that high.
As we get older, we run closer to the risk of diabetes too as we age. So
I definitely got it, but this morning I was at I think a 296. It's still high, but that's the lowest number I've had since checking it again. So just like, but I'm on gabapentin that help with that and my nerve damage to my feet. That obviously, a lot of the symptoms of high blood sugar, I'm experiencing it. We won't talk about some of the things on air live, but yeah. But back to the show. Let's see some of my notes here.
That literally, everything that I said, I have like 10 notes. I'm like out of notes now. But no, I did like this episode. It was fun.
Yeah, but no, one thing I noticed a little slight production error when the star exploded, which I mean, based on some of the exterior shots, makes you kind of wonder how far away they were from the star, because it took a long time for that fragment to get to them, because it looked like they were pretty damn close with the Tsiolkovsky there and whatnot. But when Riker grabbed Data to take him to engineering, they walked towards the emergency turbo lift rather than one of the regular turbo lifts.
Yeah.
I do apologize. I know I've been awful here I've been getting texts from people because I'm supposed to be going out tonight. They wouldn't stop texting me. They're on their way, so this is where I have to deke out, unfortunately. But
okay, well, thanks for being with us tonight, Phil. It was definitely fun.
I apologize for being a bit rude. I normally don't like to text while I'm on, but they kept sending me messages, and I had to keep sending replies, even though I told them I was doing this tonight. But so
you're fine. We're going to be done with this in 10-15 minutes anyway, because I got to bolt myself for commitments. So
all right. But we'll definitely be on for next week. I'm clearing my schedule for next week's show. So
you also need to make sure that your schedule is clear for April 7th as well.
Yes, sorry, that's in 2 weeks. Okay, I'm a week ahead of myself. Sorry. Yes, that for sure I definitely will be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that is for the movie First Contact.
Yes. Yeah, that episode is going to be an XL episode. We're going to go as long as it takes. I'm going to bow out of going to that. Since I'm going to 6 meetings a week, I can skip one and still be okay.
Good.
But it's just like I thought about doing that doing that as a 2-part episode, but I figured no, if we start rolling, we want to keep the momentum going without.
Sure. Yeah.
I think the Rick.
And it'll be a belated celebration of my birthday as well. So
exactly.
Hats all around people.
Oh yes, we know.
Anyway. Although I will warn you, I'm going on a night out on my birthday, so I'll be just going into a fibro flare. So I'll just I will be. I'll have hot water bottles. I'll probably be drugged up on tramadol. I'll probably be slurring my words. So just to pre-warn you, you've got like 2-week warning for that.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Stay safe.
All right, everyone. Tyson, good to see you too, and we'll see you guys all again next week.
All right. Hasta la pasta, my friend.
Bye.
See you soon, darling.
I don't think Tyson's coming back, so make Travis a little bigger. Say what are some other things from the episode, Travis? Since we've been like just gabbing like crazy in here, not giving you a real opportunity to talk tonight.
It's all right. I like to sit and listen. Believe it or not, there's a few little like how you put it, not Easter eggs, but like little like trivia things that I have came across and stuff. So the particular class ship that we've seen is the first time we've seen that particular class ship in the new TNG. Next to the Excelsior is the Birth. This was the first time in this class ship. And at that time, we did not know just how many people that they, said that the crew has, but they gave us a number in this particular episode, 80. Yeah. And now that threw me back too, because I remember this. Okay, it's not a big ship, but it's not a small ship. And then I started thinking back. Wait, the NX01, the NX class with Archer, they had 83 people, or 82, I believe. 82? Yeah, 82. And I was just thinking, the numbers that they have with like certain ships and stuff and everything is pretty impressive, just to see how you would think that a class ship like this will have more than just 80 people and stuff and everything, because it's a science vessel, and you will try to make sure, because those class ships are usually science vessels and stuff and everything. So I was just like, that's pretty interesting to see that the numbers wasn't so different from the NX-01, you know, and stuff. And also, to the name of this particular, they didn't use USS. They used
SS.
SS. And the name, you know, really, you know, it came across. I didn't think about this until like when I was late, probably almost about 15 years ago or so. And I heard the name, and I was like, you know what? That name sounds so familiar, because I said it has. I remember hearing that name in Star Trek before. I never put two and two together until recently and stuff. And its name is is actually true. They named this vessel after a Russian scientist from the early part of the 20th century. You know, stuff and everything. Yeah. He published a book. Was it called "The Exploration of Outer Space by Means of Rocket Device" in 1903? And I remember that because I seen that on Ancient Aliens. And then I remember that Warner von Braun actually used his calculations and stuff when he was working for the Nazis at the time and stuff, and he developed the V1 and the V2 and stuff, and the means of, like, you know, helping, you know, the U.S. achieve, you know, going to the moon and stuff and everything. So I was pretty impressed to know that, you know, at that time they still used, of course, you know, Russian, you know, scientists and stuff and everything, the name and stuff. Yeah. And everything. I was pretty impressed about that and everything.
You know? And the dedication plaque on the bridge was in Russian as well.
So really, yes.
Yeah. If you look at the shot of Data on the bridge, it's all in Russian characters. It's the only, I think it's like the only time a starship had a language other than English on the dedication plaque.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was pretty, you know, amazed when I was like, you know what, there's a lot that I didn't take when I was young when I seen this. I just enjoyed watching it, but, you know, I just didn't, not until I got older, I went back and rewatched it. I'm like, okay, you know, there's a little subtlety that I enjoy with, you know, this, you know, the stuff and everything. And then the one thing too that got me, it was so funny that this is the first time we saw a chief engineer for this particular starship.
Yeah, and they had quite a few chief engineers in season 1 before they promoted Geordi to that role in season 2.
Right. I was like, because I know this is the third episode, if you can say the third episode, into the operation.
Yeah, that begs the question. The other thing, because I mean, Encounter at Farpoint, I mean, technically was episode 1, and this is episode 2, but because they break up in syndication, they break up Farpoint into 2 parts. That makes it episode 1, episode 2, which
yeah. And it was one of those things where I was pretty impressed with just how, you know, they really start off on the bat. After the pilot episode, they went back to the TOS, like you said earlier. They went back to TOS, and they you know, had that little correlation and stuff. I'm like, you know what? I remember that episode. I remember when I was a kid. I remember seeing that particular episode. It never get really thought about until I went back and rewatched it today and stuff. And I was like, okay, you know what? That's really, you know, I like how they really did the, like, passing the torch, you know, homage and stuff and everything. It's like the next.
It's always good when they do that, though.
Huh?
It's always good when they do that, like pass the torch, because it's like showing progress, you know, and basically saying it's okay to move on, kind of thing. You know, I like that.
Yeah, talking about that makes you wonder if that's something that Gene was thinking about doing, is to kind of placate. I'm not sure if that's the right word, or just to, like, appease the fans of the original series, because there was a lot of pushback.
I remember
when they came up with Nick Fury, says, "You can't have Star Trek without, you can't do it without Spock. We're gonna boycott, blah blah blah." And this is 1987, before the internet was out and all that. So,
social media and stuff. People wrote in the campaign. You know, people wrote to the studio and stuff. You know, I mean, it was a different time. You know, And now look, people would say, "Oh, they love TNG over TOS." People love the characters over these characters in TNG over the originals and stuff and everything. And you look at it, everybody has their own, feelings towards each series and stuff. But I like that, we got them not sticking with just at that time. Gene Roddenberry was like, you know what? I think it's high time that we, branch out and expand Star Trek,
Yeah.
And I like that little, connected thing with because these episodes, because the Naked Time, Naked Now, and seeing, something that, happened, be like, wait, it just came almost like full circle with, because in the original series, the episode came out, it was the 5th episode, and it came out in the first season of TOS. And I was just like, oh wow, I never really thought about that, and it to me it makes me appreciate, just how they want to keep and make sure that fans look. This is what they call the next generation. That's why they named it the next generation. It's not going to be what you guys know, what the Kirk and Spock and everything. It's going. We writing a whole totally new next generation because people like us were upcoming newer generation of liking Star Trek, and they know just like how we see now their appeals, because a lot of people at that time were getting older. Their fans were older, and they wanted to bring in the youth.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the next generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and stuff, and now and stuff, like a lot of us, some of us older ones are kind of like biting our tongue with some of the new stuff, But in a sense,
yeah, and I find that so freaking funny because everyone. You see, I understand loyalty, and it's like I said before, I have a deep respect for TOS because it was the birth of a legend, but it really makes me laugh because there's, like you said, that TOS like passing the torch, and the torch was passed along, and then it went from TNG to DS9 and Voyager, and and it progressed, and the years go by, stories continue, new crews, new starships, new parts of the galaxy, and then people are complaining because Star Trek is no longer contradictory in its storylines. There's better acting. William Shatner's not in it, so yay, and people are complaining because of that. And it's like, hold on a minute, you want better storylines, you want more action, you want consistency, you want to solidify canon, and it's just like, that is exactly what people have got, and now all of a sudden, Star Trek is so woke. Hold on a minute.
It's been woke since '66.
Exactly. It's been woke since the beginning. And it's just like, hold on a minute. Why are people complaining so much? Because they've been given what they've always had. It's just updated. It's progressing. Better storylines, different storylines, more alien races, a deeper dive into the alien culture, and it's like people complain about that. And just when you just want to like grab someone and just slap them across the face with a wet fish, preferably a salmon. Yeah. Oh, darling, you don't know the half of it. You should watch the old shows. But no, this is exactly what people asked for. They got it, and now they're complaining about it. So all these people who are loyal to TOS and not TNG and Voyager and all that, they can piss off. They really can, because they're just contradictory assholes.
Before we have to conclude this show and stuff and everything, I want to mention this real quick. And y'all notice, and this will always bother me, and not bother me, but then I started to thinking about it. Is when that particular fragment that exploded from the star went straight towards both starships, and I'm like, of all directions in the three-dimensional universe, that particular chunk was heading directly towards them. And I was wondering to myself for a long time, how in the world will that particular chunk go directly towards them? Then I just came up with some sort of scientific logic and everything else. It's like, what both of these ships have in common that probably will attract something like that. And I will have to say, I mean, of course they didn't have the warp field wasn't engaged, but something had to do with probably their warp engines. Something had to do with the way the way I don't know, just something about how the trunk was going straight towards them. It's like in infinite directions and stuff and everything else. It just happened to go directly towards them and stuff and everything. And I'm thinking it has to do with something because the ships was attracting it. The only reason why it will go that way and stuff and everything because both ships was pulling it towards them and stuff and everything. That's just my little thought about that. It's like, man, it's a three-dimensional universe. Any direction will be different. That particular, and then like they pointed out something, how close they were to this red giant because it was going to be going into a white dwarf, and I'm thinking, yeah, if it was, it seemed like they was too close to the star, from my opinion. But at that time,
it did seem like they were.
And at that time, they did not have what a technology later in Star Trek, I believe it was season 6, they call it a metaphasic shield, where a ship can be protected with a metaphasic shielding that protects it from the heat and radiation of it. But this was way before then and stuff and everything. But that was my little nitpicker for a long time. And then I was just like, they never explained it, but I was just thinking if somebody was to say why in that direction, why was that piece just in infinite direction? It would go straight for both of those ships. And I have to say, it has to probably do because both ships have warp cores or something that was pulling to them when it exploded.
Sorry, I started getting a lot of texts from people. I just like, oh crap.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
not all of them do have warp cores. Sorry, I was just thinking that.
Because we know that things can attract like warp engines can attract stellar objects. They can pour things and stuff like that. So I just was like something simple because what do both of them have in common? They have warp cores.
Yeah, but no, Tyson was also one of the texts I had. Yeah, his internet totally zonked out. Yeah, he's able to pull up the channel, but everybody's say when Katie posted Paige's quote about Wesley being a tosser, it's just a whole bunch of spinning orbs for all of us.
That's Q messing with him.
What's that?
Yeah,
Q messing with him.
Definitely. But no, we're actually very lucky that I was able to co-host tonight because my internet has been it's been a right dickhead. It really, I've had to get in touch with my internet provider a couple of times over the last few weeks, and luckily, touch wood and touch better wood, it seems to be working okay, but a few days ago it was cutting out on a simple bloody WhatsApp call. So yeah, internet is, you see, apparently Mercury's in retrograde again, so it could be that.
Yeah, I heard someone talking about that the other day. Is Mercury in retrograde again? Because I'm just like having issues.
Yeah, I think it's in retrograde with Pluto, I think. Or is it Venus?
Or it could be
no,
Pluto?
Venus.
Or it could
No,
be
Venus.
taking over.
What was that?
It could be Skynet taking over.
Yeah.
Skynet can piss right off. Honestly, if we're having a rise in AI, I will have no problems in blowing it all up. I'm just saying. You know, I won't be, you know, if it's going to be like a Terminator Rise of the Machines, I'll put an end to it straight away. Because, you know, me and technology, we have that love-hate relationship. I hate it, but I have to whisper sweet nothings to it for it to work properly. So, yeah, I'll have no problems getting a hammer and, yeah.
As long as you're not whispering motorcycle cop as one of those sweet nothings.
No, I don't go that far. I don't go that far.
That's one of my favorite bits from the Muppet movie. It's whisper sweet nothings in my ear. Motorcycle cop. It's like, that's not a sweet nothing.
No, I don't go that far.
Yeah, before we wrap, because we had the Boimler scream, so we just got a few minutes to go.
Well, one thing too, I realized is this the first time we ever seen Star Trek when they went from duotronic to isolinear chips, isolinear processors and stuff and everything. The first time you seen chips being like, you know, instant chips and stuff like that and used, you know, and it's like, you know, I remember the duotronic, when they say duotronic, when it comes to Star Trek and everything else, that was an older form of computer technology and stuff and everything else. But this is the first time we've seen isolinear chips and stuff and everything. I remember when in the Relic, the TNG episode of Relic, when Scotty came back and LaForge was talking to him about certain things, he said that 40 years ago in his time that they went from duotronic to isolinear processors. So, you know, this was, you know, I like that little continuity thing where, you know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, that makes sense. And he gave a little timeline when they went from duotronic to isolinear.
Oh, definitely.
Good little tidbits. They were where I fail, you step up. So I appreciate that, Travis.
You're welcome.
Rain Man of Trek.
So
hey, I got the direction right.
yeah. So next week we're talking about, in the past, we're going to go for an Enterprise episode, which in my mind they did a good job of this because when we had the last Outpost, there's never official first contact with the Ferengi. And say, of course, we get another episode of Trip in his underwear.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Acquisition. But yeah, Archer, of course, gets woken up, but they don't know that they're Ferengi, so and of course they kind of retconned the Ferengi a little bit with this episode because they aren't the savages from the last Outpost, so they are more DS9 Ferengi.
Right. They knew of
and
them.
We get to see. Oh, I always forget his name. What's his name?
Ethan Phillips.
Yeah, but no, or am I thinking of another episode? Oh, what's his name? He plays tons of characters in Trek.
Jeffrey Combs?
Yes. Isn't he one of the Ferengi?
No.
Ron Howard.
I thought he was.
Yeah, Ron Howard, who was like the kid in the Corbomite maneuver. He's in it. He's also the homeless guy in why am I blanking on the past prologue or past tense?
Yeah, his brother's is one of the Ferengis.
Right, Jeffrey Combs. Let's have a look.
He played Liquidator Brunt in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I could have sworn he was in.
No, Ethan Phillips, I believe, is one of the Ferengi, right? Then
he was
Clint Howard, and then like some other guy.
Yep, Clint Howard. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is the bottom of the hour.
Right.
Well, at least the sun is still mostly up, so it's yay daylight saving time. Not sure
Yeah,
what
our clocks
page.
are going forward.
Oh,
Oh
yeah. Data was just a man possession. Like,
It's pretty. It was pretty. It's
definitely.
pretty. It was pretty
yeah.
good.
Then when Picard gave him the hypo, he just like.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, but see, I got to bounce, so we're gonna call it good for tonight. So have a great. Let's try that again. Have a great week, everyone, and may Spock be with you.
Peace and long life.
Toodles.